Whoa. So Melissa Harris, two last names, Perry, last week said some controversial statements and pissed a lot of people off, obviously. The whole concept of your children not belong to you, they belong to we, the community, and us, and yada, yada, yada. She did a good job trying to cover her tracks and back it up, but ain't nobody got time for that. Basically, in her speech, well, liberals constantly say that, Republicans use code words or, when they say things, it doesn't mean that, it means something else. But liberals do the same thing too, I guess. Because every time she was saying community, in my mind, the word state is what popped up. But I'm not even going to speak on what she did or what she said right now. But I'm going to speak about this, the leftist to the left of Melissa Harris, two last names, Perry. This is a teacher. Her name is Cheryl Jeanette Sabb. Apparently, this woman is a fourth grade teacher in Jacksonville, Florida, and she made her little fourth graders write this assignment on a piece of paper. I am willing to give up some of my constitutional rights in order to be safe or secure. That's what she did. Now, in reality, you can't. I mean, this teacher obviously crossed the line, and she was indoctrinating children. And that's the issue that many of the people have with Melissa Harris, last name is Perry, because they know she's of a similar ideology as this leftist right there. And they don't want you teaching their kids that. They want you to teach them math, science, arithmetic, things of that nature. They don't want you indoctrinating them on political ideology. But the reality is, if you send your children to Caesar, you can't get mad when they come home Romans, okay? If you send your kids to public schools, real talk, now, being that leftists dominate academia, that's pretty much what you're doing. Malcolm X said it, only a fool lets their enemy teach their children. And, I mean, everybody can afford private school, things of that nature, but, I mean, if you send your kids to private school, more often than not, they're going to get a teacher similar to this. It is what it is. Back in the day when I was younger, I had more of a balance. I had teachers actually help you, they give you opposing point of views, but they let you make your own decision, not forcing little kids to write silly things like that. The funny thing to me is that I remember when I was learning about this, the difference between communism and capitalism and, China, I think it was a test, and I was basically saying, like, China has this crime rate, that crime rate, blah, blah, blah. And, I picked the wrong answer because, of course, to a kid, communism sounds great. And then I'm thinking, like, the teacher was like, read it again, think about that. And I did for a minute, and it was like, oh, so basically the more freedom you have, the less security you have. And China has less security, but they also have less free. They have more security. The average individual does, but they have absolutely less freedom. And that's pretty much when I decided, I'm not banging with communism, period. But this teacher is actually teaching them the opposite, she's telling them to give up those freedoms for more security, which is dangerous. So I guess I can read this article about Miss Sabb. Here we goes the article. Dad fears after finding this crayon-written paper in Florida fourth grader's backpack. I am willing to give up some of my constitutional rights to be safer. This side note, it's amazing how in the speech that the man Johnny Chief gave in, I think it was Colorado or whatever. No, not Colorado. He was in Connecticut. He tried to be diplomatic and all that nonsense for like 2 seconds, but then he went into this rants about people who are crazy and they think that people want to give up their guns and things of that nature. Yet, and I'll speak about this later, but he addressed the so-called extremists who want their guns and are using fear tactics, but he did not address any of the liberal lawmakers who are imposing and infringing upon rights by, making you take tests to see if you can buy bullets, taxing bullets, fingerprinting bullets, things of that nature. They're doing these things to infringe upon the rights. He didn't talk about any of those things, but which would make the so-called crazy extremists be fearful that the government is trying to infringe upon their Second Amendment right. And this leftist teacher right here is indoctrinating children to make them think that well, I'll give up my Second Amendment right just so I can be safer. Just, on some kumbaya nonsense. But I'll speak about that gun speech too eventually. But it says uh, these words were written in crayon and emphasize of a child's straw. I am willing to give up some of my constitutional rights in order to be safe and secure, be more safe and secure. They are words that Florida Arnold Harvey was stunned to find his fourth grade son had written after a lesson about the Constitution. Oh, so this is about the Constitution. Well, damn. Aaron Harvey's son wrote as a part of a school lesson. Um, Harvey's son attends elementary school in Jacksonville, Florida. Back in January, the attorney came to the teacher students about the Bill of Rights. After the attorney left, the fourth grade teacher, Cheryl Sapp, dedicated the sentence to a part of the class and had them copy it down. He said the paper sat unnoticed in Harvey's son's backpack for several months until last week, when his son's mother almost threw it away. The words caught her eye in the trash, and she showed it to Harvey, who said that he was about to lose word. He was at a loss for words. He asked his son, who said "Sab," and spoke the sentence out loud and told them to write it down. Harvey said he asked some of his son's classmates and got the similar answer. Everybody has their opinions, Harvey told The Blaze. I'm strongly for proper education, for the freedom of thought. You can form your own opinions and have your own free speech in the future. But the education is when the Constitution was drafted and when it was ratified. Why did this happen? Why did we choose to do this? All these things. Why did they particularly choose those specific rights to put in our Bill of Rights? Like I said, you can't be mad when you see your kids the Caesar and they come home Romans, because in reality, leftists dominate academia, and you're gonna have a whole bunch of teachers do silly things like this. If you recall, the one teacher who, I think it was in North Carolina, who told the student that he couldn't critique or criticize President Obama, that was illegal and go to jail. So these are the type of teachers you have in these school systems. And therein lies the issue with the leftist Malaris Harris, two last names, Perry. She teaches the same ideology, and they take liberties. Again, the problem with school is they don't teach you what to learn. They teach you how to learn, They don't teach you how to think. They teach you what to think. They call it a school. Why do fish swim together like that and they call it a school? Because it's easier to catch them like that. And that's how they get your children. So it's like, it is what it is. No, she should have never did that. That's definitely a reach. But it's going to happen. It's amazing how some people teach their kids certain things, but they go to school and they're being taught the complete opposite. It is what it is. Continuing, the spokeswoman for Cedar Hills told The Blaze that she didn't know what prompted Sapp to have the students write that sentence. She said that the principal had filed one parent's concern about the lesson in January, but it wasn't Harvey. She said Thursday that this district and the principal were checking into what had happened. Harvey, rather than asking the school for answers, when he found the paper, wrote his concerns in an email which he was forwarded to The Blaze. He said he did it that way because he wasn't sure he would have gotten a straightforward answer if he asked the school directly. He said that he just wants to see proper, unbiased education system that doesn't want any kind of religion or political brought into the classroom, or religion or politics brought into the classroom. That's not going to happen. Teachers are taking liberties and they're crossing over the lines. I believe the Constitution. I'm a veteran. I served 6.5 years proudly, and I served to protect the rights, he said. Now, whenever I have someone coming in trying to pollute my child's mind with biased opinions, there's no education in that. Harvey told The Blaze he received a call from school Friday morning that featured the principal, guidance counselor, and Sapp. He was told that the sentence came during the lesson with the lawyer. that Seb had nothing to do with it, and that Harvey's son wrote it in his own free will. Oh, Harvey said that he spoke to the girl in the classroom who specifically said Sapp handpicked students to write the sentence. All of the children are pointing at the teacher, Harvey said Friday, and the school told me that my son wrote it on his own free will. There's no way he knew how to write that on his own free will. Come on, a fourth grader? He likes to use some big words to flourish, but if he was going to put together a sentence that political, I'm sure he would be more jumbled than a nice sentence like that. One of my biggest issues with the educational system, apart from all this nonsense, is that we're not winning when it comes to math, science, and arithmetic, things of that nature. They took away gym and recess, things that boys need. It helped them develop. It gives them a break. They took away art. A lot of things that help kids become creative, and they replaced it with stuff like bullying and diversity classes and sensitivity classes. Like, you're teaching your children all this nonsense, and they're not learning nothing. They have no skills. And that's the part I really don't like. Like, wasting all this money and time preparing kids to be leftists, and then meanwhile in China, they don't have these issues. Kids are, they're thriving, they're dominating, and if these leftists dominate the school system and they want to promote these ideologies, what is that the future of these kids? Like, what will they know? It's crazy to me. Spending hours upon hours on bullying and teaching children that, two mommies, writing books about, exposing your kids to things of that nature, spending countless number of hours trying to contradict those parents who teach their kids creationism by giving them a bunch of evolution. Again, giving them both is cool as you're teaching it, but trying to dictate one over the other as a teacher is wrong. It's a parent's job to teach their kids what they want them to believe in that area, and then when the child grows up, he can make his own decisions. But we have a real problem here.
Were you surprised? Well, first of all, let's do this. Tell me about how you heard about the story and how we pursued it.
So a gentleman, but I won't share his last name in case he doesn't want to be outed, but a gentleman named Bud emailed me and said, hey, I tried to send this earlier, but no one got back to me, so I'm sending it to you directly, which by the way, hint, always a good idea. Because sometimes, now we've revamped the tip box, which is fine, but sometimes when you just try to send it to general, inquiry at the Blaze or something, doesn't get to the right people. So he said, here's an assignment that my friend pulled out of his child's backpack. And now, actually, that friend, Bud, was asking, is this part of a Common Core or C-Scope?
Right.
Now, when we looked into it, we actually didn't feel like that was, in finding out, what it was related to. So, but I said, it doesn't matter if that's not part of C-Scope or Common Core. That's going to be a big story. And so I talked with Madeline, who was the author of the piece, and kind of, walked her through that, and she did an awesome job on. Yesterday, she had to call me at about 3 o'clock just to say, okay, here's where we are, because he's going back and forth with the district and the dad and the principal's office, and just trying to nail it all down. And so you'll notice, right? The story is not. It's not like a 1,000-word expose because it didn't need to be. And so sometimes you see it. I think it's something around 500 words. You look at, you're like, 500 words? Did it really take 2.5 days to sort through? And the answer is yes. So There you go. And Bud emailed me today and said, thank you for doing the story. And I thank Bud for sending it.
So, and it's gotten a lot of attention. Now, do we know more? I know we talked to the school district. We updated the story. What is the school saying about what happened in this case?
So part of what we didn't include in the story, and which is why I'm glad we're doing this recap because it allows us to fill in a little bit of the blanks, is so the original, what this was, there's a program in Florida, and we didn't name the program because it just wasn't consequential at this point, but there's a program statewide in Florida that's done by the Supreme Court of Florida where they bring in lawyers and judges to speak to kids about the Constitution and the legal system. And so, it's not, it's kind of an extracurricular thing, that they just, Florida schools bring in these people to talk. So originally, that was the overarching premise, right? That this Florida school had brought in some people in this law program and this lawyer to come in and just teach the kids about Constitution. Now, the claim that the father is then making is that after that lawyer left, this teacher had the students take out a piece of paper and dictated the sentence that you see in the picture, which is, I'm willing to give away my constitutional rights to be safer or more secure, something along those lines. And now our update to the story today is that the school is now claiming, no, the teacher did not do that. In fact, that it happened while the lawyer was there. So what they're kind of saying is, the student did it on his own when the lawyer was there. So if anyone deserves blame or responsibility, I guess it falls on the lawyer is what they're trying to say.
I think, and I read the update, I think we could actually clarify that even a little more in the text version of the story. It references the lawyer, but that's why I was asking, because I wasn't entirely clear where the lawyer entered the picture in that story. Now, it's not always uncommon for me to be unclear. We don't need to hammer that home. But the father had there had been some interaction earlier, right, when this happened back in January. I mean, so it had been raised.
Well, yes and no. And this is our responsibility to point this out in the story. So Madeline has that sentence in there that the dad actually did not go directly to the school. Initially.
The principal said they'd gotten an email from a different parent.
Right. Right. So,
I know you don't have it right up in front of you. I was just going to say, she said the spokeswoman said, the principal had fielded one parent's concern about the lesson in January, but it wasn't Harvey. She said the district and principal were checking. So it means there was more than just this kid and this parent. So it had to have affected or involved other parents.
Right. And what and part of the father's rebuttal to the school's official position now is that it's not just my son saying that this teacher had them take out a piece of paper and dictated this sentence to them. It is others who other kids and parents that I've talked to are alleging the same thing.
And they said that the teacher handpicked students to write that sentence.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's kind of a chorus here. And part of the reason, so there's two things that I think are worth pointing out. One is that, the dad did not go directly to the school when he found this. Two, he didn't find this in January, right? He just recently found, it was, listen, when I was a kid in elementary school, I'd throw some stuff in my backpack and it'd get crunched down by lunches or crunched down by little Power Rangers or whatever. And so he, was going through his son's backpack, I think something like clean it out and said, whoa, what's this? And that's how it all started.
I was just trying to imagine you playing with your Power Rangers, and it was a little bit, a little disconcerting. You're watching the Blazecast on theblaze.com. I'm Scott Baker, editor-in-chief, along with John Seidel. Friday free-for-all, but we have two big stories. One is the story about this the kid, the fourth grader in Florida, who came home from school, written in crayon, I am willing to give up some of my constitutional rights in order to be safer or more secure. It's not even like a question. Like, am I willing? Not like kids want it. And I guess are you saying to your fourth grade, you're probably 10, right? Yeah. Have you grappled with your Constitution? Are you willing? Let's go to the Third Amendment. Are you willing to house and quarter the militiamen of the state? Right? Wait, you know what? If that will make me more secure, sure, I will let the government house soldiers in my house at will. Right? I'll give up that right. It was my right to not have that happen, but I'm willing to give that one up. You, Mr. 10-year-old, are you willing?
Well, see, and now listen, as a journalist, I try not to make, I present you the news, right? But here's the outlying question in my mind. And I think this is the outlying question in a lot of people's mind. It seems very odd that a fourth grader, so Scott, a fourth grader I think is about what, 11? 10, 11?
Well, like I said, I have a first grader who's 7. So in my mind, it was going second grade is 8, and third grade is 9, and fourth grade is 10, basically.
Okay,
right?
So 10, 11, right? It's really hard for me to imagine that is a sentence that a 10-year-old comes up with on their own.
Oh, no, yeah, there's no way. No, they were instructed to write this down based on whatever, and I'm sure it pegged off the lawyer, the local attorney coming into the class to talk about the Bill of Rights. I see the reference now. I see the earlier reference, and that's where I was a little slow. But I think that this is a process of conditioning, right? Just in general. When we had Evan Sayet on the other day, and so many of you liked him, and we'll have him back. He was saying that, they wrote that book, All I Need to Know in Life I Learned in Kindergarten, and he's like, that actually is what happened to the liberals, is that they stopped thinking at kindergarten at that level, and then they take then they have a blind eye to all of the other reality of the world. But I think from the time that kids are the educational system is so socialized and liberalized that from the time these kids are in preschool, and by fourth grade, if you haven't made a kid a liberal, then you've probably been doing something wrong in the minds of most teachers and school boards. And so I really do see it. And there are more examples today. And I apologize to Harvey if he had sent that to the tip box and I didn't see it and jump on it right away. But I went through hundreds of tips today. And there probably were 2 or 3 that involved people saying, look, this is what's happening in my kid's school. This is what my kid brought home. This is the statement that I saw. And you're willing to submit questions to them there. You can also talk about them in the chat if you have other examples. But I think parents have reached a serious tipping point. I was looking back, by the way, at the terms that are searched that brought people to the Blaze, and in the last 30 days. And out of the top 20, I think 10 to 15 of them, it was more than 50%, was some variation of common, core, scope, school, curriculum. Of all of the terms searched on the internet that could bring you to the Blaze and 35,000 stories that we've done, that's what people are looking for right now. They want to know what's going on with this stuff. Now, we've done a bunch of stories on it. And even at that, John, though, were you surprised that this story on the fourth grader in Florida took off like a shot as much as it did?
Nope. And this is, I was kind of joking on an editorial call today that when I sent it to Madeline, I said, I think this is going to be it. Scott and I joked behind the scenes about a news sense, like a spidey sense. And so when I saw this, my newsy sense started tingling.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Well, and this one is one of those ones on a Friday. It took off on the Blaze. I don't think it's been hardly anywhere else. It's sort of up to this audience. I talked about it yesterday when I was talking about the those comments and some of those articles by people at very big viral sites like BuzzFeed saying, we just can't get news stories to go viral. We just can't, it's too difficult. And I was like, really? Because our stories seem to take off pretty well. And you guys help push these stories. If you notice, and I'm not taking on any one network or show more than another, but we'll often see or be emailed by producers for cable shows saying, "Hey, we looked at your story. We're going to do that one today." I think I'll be safe and just not make any specific identifications, but there's one show that does like 3 or 4 of our stories every day. And they tell us this, right? They just say that they're not allowed to give us credit, right? And but what we do know is that then you guys help us make these stories front and center, right? We hold the accountability. Somebody said in a comment that I put up a little while ago, get your kids out of the public schools or hold them on a short leash. So really pay attention. And a lot of you, I'm seeing stories. Anton's, putting in that a few years ago, his 4th grade son was suspended for drawing a picture of a gun pointed at John Kerry. Anton, how were you allowed to parent? I know. So if we're gonna make this story a story, it really is up to how we send it out. And we've got 150,000 followers on Twitter. That helps, but it doesn't do any good if it doesn't lead to sort of some awareness on the part of every parent and people just paying attention to what's going on with their kids. All right. So the outcome on this, John, you sent this is going to be, because it seemed to be this lawyer came in and gave a Bill of Rights talk. This teacher, laid this out for the for this 4th grade, students, a couple of them, to write this down. It doesn't sound like that this would necessarily, in any way that we could think of, be tied directly to a Common Core curriculum or a C-scope kind of thing in the Florida Virgin, right?
Right. No, Scott. This sounds like it's more your garden variety liberal bias in the classroom. Which kind of goes back to what you were saying yesterday about, the story that we did of a liberal professor and us kind of taken aback by our own reaction at first, which was, this is just kind of what you expect, right? So no, this doesn't seem to be a curriculum thing as more of your garden variety liberalism in the classroom. But now we are digging more because, see, when we went to press with our story, the school was being a little bit dodgy towards the end. They were at first really willing to talk to us and then kind of clammed up. And they were not being as overtly kind of trying to put more of the onus on the lawyer and the program. So now our next step is to dig even more into that. We're trying to track down the actual lawyer who is in the classroom and say, okay, so now the school is saying this more falls on you. But above all, I think the school is trying to pin it on the 10-year-old student. So it's up to you to believe if you think a 10-year-old can come up with the phrase, I'm willing to give some of my constitutional rights away to be safer or more secure. Do you think a 10-year-old is writing that?
I mean, I'm sure there's some 10-year-olds who can. I was trying to look also, by the way, did you hear me mention earlier that somebody said, what happens to these teachers? We never hear about them getting fired. And I was trying to remember what happened in there was a North Carolina teacher who got in trouble, and then a few months later, life is normal, back in the class. And so somebody said it was the lunch one, and that was remember the teacher with the food police who a 4-year-old's lunch was replaced for not being healthy enough. That was one incident. She was suspended indefinitely a year ago in March. The other one was the teacher who told the student they could be put in jail if they insulted Obama.
Oh.
So I'll go look back and see if we can figure that out. What's your general feeling in the end here, John? I mean, you went to a dangerous Christian college. Down the road, there are little Seidels running around on tiny little Vespas. Where are you?
With little bumpers on their head, Scott? Remember that?
Yeah, right. If you guys missed that, do not go back and watch yesterday's show. Homeschool, private school, or are you bold enough to go back into the public school?
Well, so here's the interesting, because my wife and I have actually discussed this. We were just discussing it last week. I think it depends. Where my wife grew up in a suburb of Houston, the public school, was actually the better school, because the Christian school was where all the troubled kids and the ones that were like too bad to kept getting kicked out of school. Like, that was the worst option. So,
yeah,
it depends. It's one of those things where you got to do your homework. And I have nieces and nephews that one of them was getting so bullied in the Catholic school back in Wisconsin that they pulled her out and put her in the public school, and it's much better there, right? So, man, it's really just, it's where you live. Because remember, the teachers are generally going to be a product of the area that they are. So, for example, suburban Houston is not a bastion of liberal, thinking. So, if you're a conservative, that's going to, probably bode well for you.
Fair enough. I think although it was in one of the really conservative Texas schools where we had a story just the other day, though, that was a problem, right? Wasn't that one of the ones where, yeah.
Yeah. And so let me just say this. It's not a a fail-proof method,
Right.
There's plenty of people who are saying, I just got to homeschool,
Right.
And homeschooling, I think, has even evolved from when I was in school. And, homeschooling is, you have these homeschool cooperatives, you're getting together and having gym class, every week with all the fellow homeschoolers, and you're doing stuff. There's even now, they're advertising this in Texas called Texas Can Academy. It's all online, right? So, there you go. I mean, that's another option.
So here's the what I'd like to. Judy, by the way, pointing out. What about the Albany, New York high school that made the assignment for the students? Though the students were Jews and the teacher was Hitler, students were supposed to state their value or worth to Hitler. In fact, we have that one in motion. I think I had sent that over John's direction earlier today. A number of you tipped that to us here this morning in the middle of the day, and so I think that is one that we'll take a look at.